What's up, boys? Today, talking about second best sling, attachment points, and kind of just overall setup. We get a bunch of Q&A questions about, just how do I set up my sling? Guys get them out of the bag and they don't have attachment points. They don't know what to buy. So we started stocking these things, little 1-inch QDs, and then the 2 into the 1. If guys want to take a 2-point sling, connect down to a single point for CQB or some dynamic shooting, we've got those things too. It's personally what I run. Not for everybody, but we have the option out there. So for the guys who have never set up a sling, this is what it is. If your gun doesn't come with the QD attachment points, you have to get those. So if you don't have a QD, you have to get one. So quick disconnect, that's where the sling goes into. I know some guys, there's a bunch of different configurations out there. So if you have one you like, drop us a comment and let us know. That way we can try it. We always like trying out new stuff. So gotta have a QD, and then on the back of the buttstock, on these KECs, they have a QD slot on both sides. One here, and then on the buttstock, the exact same thing. So it's kind of dealer preference, wherever you want it to go. So you just have to know, if I have my connection points really close up, it gives me some maneuverability, but sometimes if I go to transition shoulders, it doesn't give me the best foot forward. So I know a lot of guys put them on the back, a lot of guys wrap them over the top. I don't care what you do, as long as you can do everything unrestricted. So I'll show you just initial setup, and then we can kind of go from there. You got to tweak it to yourself, but all right. So you pull handy dandy sling out of the box. I'm only going to show you the right-handed option because Cole's the only left-handed dude left in North America, and he already knows how to put his sling together. So here we go. I like to stretch this thing all the way out, make sure everything's good, everything's symmetrical, pull tabs are all working, and then I start with the front. So grab my little QD, drop this thing out of the bag. We've undone it from the friction adapter. We have everything out. We have our QD. We're gonna pass it through the bottom end. I'm gonna bring it right back over the top. And then this is where kind of the magic happens. This is really just your distance, how long you want this front tail to be. So I don't mess with it too much. I just get it in here so it doesn't slide around. And we'll talk about some of the nuanced stuff. Guys don't want a bunch of extra overhang here. It just gets sloppy. You have to wind it back up, and then by the time you tape it, it ends up just being a big knot of shit. And not everybody wants that. Some guys do. They like a big purchase up front. So we'll kind of play with this thing when we get closer. But now that that's on there, slide everything up, and now we're going to the tail. Now this is where we have to decide if we want to go QD, or do we just want to go single, or if we want to go the 2-to-1 tri-glide, or are we just going QD? If we're going tri-glide, we have to remove this thing, the actual pass-through friction adapter. And this is where it gets dicey. So you got to think about how this gun, or how this sling is going to be set up on the gun, and then how that thing is going to be on you. So it goes around your shoulder, kind of whatever configuration. We want to make sure the tri-glide's orientated so we can pull it off and do a quick disconnect. So for this one, we take off pass-through buckle all the way. And now we're going to route this thing on for how it's going to go. Left-handed goes one way, right-handed goes the other way. And we'll do that. Go on, you. So this is kind of how my sling comes up over my shoulder. So if I'm going to go a QD 2-into-1, when I undo this QD connector, I'm going to go into here. So this is how I connect it. I face this thing inboard, right? So from this configuration, I just trace it down. We can go up and over. It doesn't have to be crazy fancy. And don't get too wrapped up in the placement of this thing because we're about to adjust it anyway, right? So, front of the sling, tail of the sling. Now that I have this thing in position, I can drop the sling back down, and now I can put on my pass-through. First, we have to put the tri-glide on. If you don't put the tri-glide on, you'll have no way to secure the excess. So we're going back to a QD, same thing, nice and free, And we go back through, a little pass through here. All right, everything's good, everything is mated. So we're gonna talk about just some finer points, just some different options for you guys. So for me, I don't like a whole bunch of sloppy shit out here, so bring down my gun. If I'm going to go to the backside QD, I can go straight into this side of the buttstock, or if I want, I can go on the other side. Sometimes it gives me a little more option, a little more maneuverability. But what I typically tell guys is when I'm standing up and I drop this thing, I want it to rest kind of midline. So I drop this thing around my neck. I want it kind of right in this configuration. So if I'm doing CQB and I want this thing to go to a 2-to-1, I can take it from here, I can plug it into my QD, and now I'm in a single point configuration. I can go back down to a 2, and now we can just mess around with our tolerances for this. So right now I can't maximize this sling because of my friction adapter in its location. If I slide this thing down, now I can cinch this thing down more. So for the guys in body armor, that's really where it comes down to. Maximizing your pull tab so you can actually cinch out and sling. So how to make this adjustment? I sit down in my handy dandy chair, I drape this thing over my neck, and I start to adjust it. I come back out of the friction adapter, and then I slide this thing down as close as I can. I like to have a whole lot of room on the front, like it just affords me a little more option. And if I get this tri-glide down close to the actual QD, it ends up being one single system, and I don't have a bunch of gaps in here. I can if I want, but take a little bit of time, trim this thing up. And this excess, you can roll it back through, stuff it back, tape it, you can cut it. Once you get the size of your sling with kit on, for the guys who wear kit, you know, it's pretty much there once you first get it. I've seen a lot of guys, they will take this and put it on the opposite side. Now it kind of runs in this configuration, so when they snap the presentation, it's kind of clean. I don't particularly like it. I know some guys wrap this thing over the top of the buttstock. I'm fine with keeping it on the inside. It's fine by me, but. So, let's see what 2-to-1 looks like. Like that is just too low. So I've got to bring this whole thing up. So I'm going to take my tri-glide, I'm going to cinch this whole thing up and see kind of how I want it for switching shoulders. So I snap it out, I bring it in front of my face. Is it free and clear? Does it feel natural? Yeah, but it feels too low. If I go to do a transition, this thing is down on my feet, so I've got to make some adjustments. But that's why we do it. That's why we take our time. We don't rush this thing because we got to make it right. So run back out of the pass-through. Just make some finite adjustments. It doesn't have to be crazy. But if I bring this up, get them kind of closer to the actual 2-to-1, and I cinch it, I can start taking up some of this extra slop in play. For some of the guys that don't like these pass-throughs being that close, we can just cinch them all the way down. That way there's not multiple buckles kind of getting in our way. And you just got to play with it, dude. It might take you 15, 20 minutes. It might take you an hour. It doesn't matter. It's all worth it because it's an actual piece of kit you're going to use all the time. So it's worth taking your time. But that's what we were talking about with maximizing the draw. So from right here, I can break down my gun. It's a clean pass through and snap this thing into position. But now I can maximize this to be able to cinch it down. Right? If that's where you like it, that's where you like it. We can take these and we can double back through. Bring it back from the top. Clean it all up. You can tape this, you can cut it, and kind of do whatever you want to. But now you just don't have this extra little tail flopping around that drives some guys nuts. Some guys will band it over, they'll tape it. I like just stowing the excess. So, stowing the excess there. I know some guys, depending on where they put this tri-glide, they'll run it back through. I'm not a big fan of it. I end up just balling this thing up, or I just chop it. So that we don't have to deal with it. This is one of the boys' slings, so I'm not gonna hack it to myself. I'm not gonna be rude, but pretty good universal size setup. If I necktie this thing and I drop it, I want it to hit me kind of in the belt line. That's just, in my experience, it's given me the most range of motion. Allows me to be able to transition from one shoulder to the other, be able to work reloads and everything else, and it's the proper distance. If I let it go, I know where it's going. It's not gonna fall all the way down, hit me mid-thighs or my knees. I don't want that. So guys, now that this whole thing is kind of set up in what I'll just say my configuration, the 2-to-1, we should have QD up front, not a whole lot of excess nonsense, your pass-through into your pull tab, right? Goes down to the actual padding. Now we hit our 2-to-1, and then we hit our backside QD, and then we're gonna chop this off. If you guys ever ran our slings before, you know we make the tail extra long to accommodate people in kit and different body types, so you can trim this thing down once you know you're set. Don't cut off too much of it, because if you do, you gotta get a new sling, right? So we wait. I recommend taping this thing up, folding it over a couple times, get to the range, make sure it's perfect before you hack this thing off. So if you guys got any questions, drop them down in a comment, let us know, and see you guys next time. Appreciate you, boys. Talk soon.